Acute angle. An angle with measure between 0 and 90. Acute triangle. A triangle with 3 acute angles. Adjacent angles. 2 angles in a plane that have a common vertex and a common side, but no common interior points. Alternate interior angles. 2 non-adjacent interior angles on opposite sides of a transversal. Angles 1 and 2 are alternate interior angles. Altitude of parallelogram. Any segment perpendicular to the line containing a base from any point on the opposite side. Altitude of a solid. See prism, pyramid, cone, cylinder. Altitude of a trapezoid. Any segment perpendicular to a line containing one base from a point on the opposite base. Altitude of a triangle. The perpendicular segment from a vertex to the line containing the opposite side. The figure line BD and line AD are altitudes. Angle. A figure formed by 2 rays that have the same endpoint. The 2 rays are called the sides of the angle. Their common endpoint is the vertex. Angle of the depression. When a point B is viewed from a higher point A, as shown by the diagram below, angle 1 is the angle of depression. Angle of elevation. When a point A is viewed from a lower point B, as shown by the diagram at the left below, angle 2 is the angle of the elevation. Apothem. The perpendicular distance from the center of a regular polygon to a side. Auxiliary line. A line or ray or segment added to a diagram to help in a proof. Axes. Usually 2 perpendicular lines used to establish a coordinate system. Axiom. A statement that is accepted without proof. Base of an isosceles triangle. See legs of an isosceles triangle. Base of a parallelogram. Any side of a parallelogram can be considered its base. The term base may refer to the line segment or its length. Base of a pyramid. See pyramid. Base of a prism. See prism. Bases of a trapezoid. See trapezoid. Biconditional. A statement that contains the words if and only if. Bisector of an angle. The ray that divides the angle into 2 congruent adjacent angles. Bisector of a segment. A line, segment, ray, or plane that intersects the segment at its midpoint. Center of a circle. See circle. Center of a regular polygon. The center of the circumscribed circle. Central angle of a circle. An angle with its vertex at the center of the circle. Central angle of a regular polygon. An angle formed by 2 radii drawn to consecutive vertices. Chord. A segment whose endpoints lie on a circle. Circle. The set of points in a plane that are a given distance from a given point in the plane. The given point is the center, and the given distance is the radius. Circumference of a circle. The perimeter of a circle given by the limiting number approached by the perimeters of a sequence of regular inscribed polygons. For radius r, c equals 2 pi r. Page 717. Circumscribed circle. A circle is circumscribed about a polygon when each vertex of the polygon lies on the circle. The polygon is inscribed in the circle. Circumscribed polygon. A polygon is circumscribed about a circle when each side of the polygon is tangent to the circle. The circle is inscribed in the polygon. Collinear points. Points all in one line. Common tangent. A line that is tangent to each of two coplanar circles. A common interval tangent intersects the segment joining the centers. A common external tangent does not intersect the segment. Complementary angles. Two angles whose measures have the sum 90. Composite of mappings. A transformation that combines two mappings. The composite of mappings S and T maps P and P sub 2, where T times P equals P sub 1, and S times P sub 1 equals P sub 2, also called a product of mapping. Concentric circles. Circles that lie in the same plane and have the same center. Concentric spheres. Spheres that have the same center. Conclusion. See if-then statement. Concurrent lines. Two or more lines that intersect in one point. Conditional statement. See if-then statement. Cone. The diagrams illustrate a right cone and an oblique cone. Both have circular bases and a vertex V. In the right cone, h is the length of the altitude. L is the slant height, and r is the radius. Congruence mapping. See isometry. Congruent angles, angles that have equal measures. Congruent arcs, arcs in the same circle or in congruent circles that have equal measures. Congruent circles, or spheres, circles or spheres that have congruent radii. Congruent figures, figures having the same size and shape. Congruent polygons, polygons whose vertices can be matched up so that the corresponding parts, angles and sides of the polygons are congruent. Congruent segments, segments that have equal lengths. Contraction. See dilation. Contrapositive of a conditional. The contrapositive of the statement if P then Q is the statement if not Q then not P. Converse. The converse of the statement if P then Q is the statement if Q then P. Convex polygon. A polygon such that no line containing a side of the polygon contains a point in the interior of the polygon. Coordinate plane. the plane of the x-axis and the y-axis. Coplanar points, points all in one plane. Corollary of a theorem, a statement that can be proved easily by applying the theorem. Corresponding angles, two angles in corresponding positions relative to two lines. In the figure angle S, 2 and 6 are corresponding angles. Cosine, cosine of angle A equals AC over AB, or cosine of A equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Counterexample, an example used to prove that an if-then statement is false. For the counterexample, the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. Page 718. Cube, a rectangular solid with square faces. Cylinder, the diagram illustrates a right cylinder and an oblique cylinder. In the right cylinder, the segment joining the centers of the circular bases is an altitude. The length of an altitude is the height, h, of the cylinder. A radius of a base is a radius, r, of the cylinder. Decagon, a 10-sided polygon. Deductive reasoning, proving statements by reasoning from accepted postulates, definitions, theorems, and given information. Diagonal, a segment joining two non-consecutive vertices of a polygon. Diameter, a chord that contains the center of a circle. Dilation, a dilation with center O and non-zero scale factor k maps any point to a point piece of 1 determined as followed. 1. If k is greater than 0, piece of 1 lies on OP line, and O piece of 1 equals k times OP. 2. If k is less than 0, piece of 1 lies on the ray opposite of line OP, and O piece of 1 equals the absolute value of k times OP. 3. The center 0 is its own image. If the absolute value of k is greater than 1, the dilation is an expansion. If the absolute value of k is less than 1, the dilation is a contraction. Distance from a point to a line or plane. The length of the perpendicular segment from the point to the line or plane. Dot product. For vectors AB and CD, the number AC plus BD, the dot product of perpendicular vectors is 0. Equal vectors. Vectors with the same magnitude and the same direction. Equiangular triangle. A triangle with all angles congruent. Equilateral triangle. A triangle with all sides congruent. Expansion. See dilation. Exterior angle of a triangle. The angle formed when one side of the triangle is extended. Angle DAC is the exterior angle of triangle ABC, and angles B and C are remote interior angles. With respect to angle DAC, exterior angle is also applied to other polygons. Function. A correspondence between sets of numbers in which each number in the first set corresponds to exactly one number in the second set. Geometric mean. If a, b, and x are positive numbers, with a over x equals x over b, then x is the geometric mean between a and b. Glide. See translation. Glide reflection. A transformation in which every point P is mapped to a point P of 2 by these steps. 1. A glide maps P to P1, and 2. A reflection in a line parallel to the glide line maps P1 to P2. Glide reflection system. A figure has glide reflection symmetry if there is a glide reflection that maps the figure onto itself. Golden ratio. See golden rectangle. Golden rectangle. A rectangle such that its length, L, and width, W, satisfy the equation L over W equals L plus W over L. The ratio L-W is called the golden ratio. Great circle. The intersection of a sphere with any plane passing through the center of the sphere. Half turn. A rotation through 180 degrees. Height. The length of an altitude of a polygon or a solid. Heron's formula. A formula for finding the area of a triangle when the lengths of its sides are known. Hexagon. A six-sided polygon. Hypotenuse. In a right triangle, the side opposite the right angle. The other two sides are called legs. Hypothesis. See if-then statement. Page 719. Identity transformation. The mapping that maps every point to itself. If-then statement. A statement whose basic form is if P, then Q. Statement P is the hypothesis, and statement Q is the conclusion. Image. See mapping. Indirect proof. A proof in which you assume temporarily that the conclusion is not true, and then deduce a contradiction. Inductive reasoning. A kind of reasoning in which the conclusion is based on several past observations. Inscribed angle. An angle whose vertex is on a circle and whose sides contain chords of the circle. Inscribed circle. See circumscribed polygon. Inscribed polygon. See circumscribed circle. Intersection of two figures. The set of points that are in both figures. Inverse of a conditional. The inverse of the statement if P, then Q, is the statement if not P, then not Q. Inverse of a transformation. The inverse of T is the transformation S, such that S times T equals I. Isometry. A transformation that maps every segment to a congruent segment, also called a congruence mapping. Isosceles trapezoid. A trapezoid with congruent legs. Isosceles triangle. A triangle with at least two sides congruent. Kite. A quadrilateral that has two pairs of congruent sides, but opposite sides are not congruent. Lateral area of a prism. The sum of the areas of its lateral faces. Lateral edges of a prism. See prism. Lateral edges of a pyramid. see pyramid. Lateral faces of a prism, see prism. Lateral faces of a pyramid, see pyramid. Legs of an isosceles triangle. The two congruent sides. The third side is the base. Legs of a right triangle. See hypotenuse. Legs of a trapezoid. See trapezoid. Length of a segment. The distance between its endpoints. Linear equation. An equation whose graph is a line. Line symmetry. A figure has line symmetry if there is a symmetry line K such that the reflection R of K maps the figure onto itself. Locus. The set of all points and only those points that satisfy one or more conditions. Logically equivalent statements. Statements that are either both true or both false. Magnitude of a vector, ray AB, the length of AB. Major arc, see minor and minor arcs. Mapping. A correspondence between points. Each point P is a given set, is mapped to exactly one point, 1, in the same or a different set. P sub 1 is called the image of P, and P is called the pre-image of P sub 1. Measure of a major arc. See minor and major arcs. Measure of a minor arc. See minor and major arcs. Measure of an angle. A unique positive number, less than or equal to 180 degrees, that is paired with the angle. Measure of a semicircle. See semicircles. Median of a trapezoid. The segment that joins the midpoints of the legs. Median of a triangle. A segment from a vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. Midpoint of a segment. The point that divides the segment into two congruent segments. Minor and major arcs. Arcs YZ is a minor arc of circle point O. Arc XYZ is a major arc. The measure of a minor arc is the measure of its central angle. Here, angle YOZ. The measure of a major arc is found by subtracting the measure of the minor arc from 360. N-gon, a polygon of n sides. Oblique solid. See cone, cylinder, prism. Obtuse angle, an angle with measure between 90 and 180. Obtuse triangle, a triangle with one obtuse angle. Octagon, an 8-sided polygon. Page 720. One-to-one mapping, or function. A mapping or function from set A to set B in which every member of B has exactly one pre-image in A. Opposite rays. Given three collinear points, R, S, T. If S is between R and T, then line SR and ST are opposite rays. Origin, the intersection point, denoted O, of the x-axis and the y-axis in a coordinate plane. Parallel line and plane, a line and a plane that do not intersect. Parallel lines, coplanar lines that do not intersect. Parallelogram, a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposites sides parallel. Parallel planes, planes that do not intersect. Pentagon, a five-sided polygon. Perimeter of a polygon, the sum of the lengths of its sides. Perpendicular bisector of a segment, a line or ray or segment that is perpendicular to the segment at its midpoint. Perpendicular line and plane, a line and a plane that are perpendicular if and only if they intersect, and the line is perpendicular to all lines in the plane that pass through the point of intersection. Perpendicular lines, two lines that intersect to form right angles. Plane symmetry, a figure in space has plane symmetry if there is a symmetry plane X such that reflection in the plane maps the figure onto itself. Point of tangency, see tangent to a circle. Point symmetry, a figure has point symmetry if there is a symmetry point 0 such that the half-turn HO maps the figure onto itself. Polygon, a plane figure formed by coplanar segments, sides, such that 1. Each segment intersects exactly two other segments, 1 at each endpoint, and 2. No two segments with a common endpoint are collinear. Postulate, a statement that is accepted without proof. Pre-image, see mapping. Prism, the solids shown are prisms. The shaded faces are the bases, congruent polygons lying in parallel planes. The other faces are lateral faces, and all are parallelograms. Adjacent lateral faces intersect in parallel segments called lateral edges. An altitude of a prism is a segment joining the two base planes and perpendicular to both. The length of an altitude is the height, h, of the prism. Figure A, in which the lateral faces are rectangles, is called a right prism. Figure B is an oblique prism. Product of mappings. See composite of mappings. Proportion, an equation stating that ratios are equal. The first and last terms are the extremes. The middle terms are the means. Pyramid. The diagram shows a pyramid. Point V is its vertex. The pentagon ABCDE is its base. The 5 triangular faces meeting at V are lateral faces. They intersect in segments called lateral edges. The segment from the vertex perpendicular to the base is the altitude, and its length is the height of the pyramid. In a regular pyramid, the base is a regular polygon. All lateral edges are congruent. All lateral faces are congruent isosceles triangles, and the altitude meets the base at its center. The height of a lateral face is the slant height of the pyramid. Pythagorean triple. Any triple of a positive integer a, b, and c such that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Page 721. Quadrant. Any one of the 4 regions into which a plane is divided by the coordinate axis. Quadrilateral. A 4-sided polygon. Radius of a circle. See circle. Radius of a regular polygon. The distance from the center to a vertex. Radius of a right cylinder. See cylinder. Ratio. The ratio of x to y, the sum at y does not equal 0, is x over y, and is sometimes written x to y. Ray. The ray AC consists of segment AC and all other points P such that C is between A and P. The point named first, here A, is the endpoint of a ray AC. Rectangle. A quadrilateral with 4 right angles. Rectangular solid. A right rectangular prism. Reflection. Reflection. A transformation in which a line of reflection acts like a mirror, reflecting points to their images. A reflection in a line M maps every point P to a point P sub 1, such that 1, if P is not on line M, then M is the perpendicular bisector of line PP sub 1, and 2, if P is on line M, then P sub 1 equals P. Regular polygon. A polygon that is both equiangular and equilateral. Regular pyramid. See pyramid. Remote interior angles. See exterior angle of a triangle. Rhombus. A quadrilateral with 4 congruent sides. Right angle. An angle with measure 90. Right solid. See cone, cylinder, prism. Right triangle. A triangle with 1 right angle. Rotation. A rotation about point O through x of O is a transformation such that 1. If point P is different from O, then OP sub 1 equals OP, and the measure of angle POP sub 1 equals x, and 2. If point P is the same as O, then P sub 1 equals P. Rotational symmetry. A figure has rotational symmetry if there is a rotation that maps the figure onto itself. Same side interior angles. 2 interior angles on the same side of a transversal. Scalar multiple of a vector. The product of the vector a, b, and the real number k is the scalar multiple ka, kb. Scale factor. For similar polygons, the ratio of the lengths of 2 corresponding sides. Scalene triangle. A triangle with no sides congruent. Secant of a circle. A line that contains a chord. Sector of a circle. A region bounded by 2 radii and an arc of the circle. Segment of a line. 2 points on the line and all points between them. The 2 points are called the endpoints of the segment. Segments divided proportionately. Line AB and line CD are divided proportionately if points L and M lie on line AB and line CD, respectively, and AL over LB equals CM over MD. Semicircles, the two arcs of a circle that are cut off by a diameter. The measure of a semicircle is 180. Sides of an angle, see angle. Sides of a triangle, see triangle. Similarity mapping, a transformation that maps any figure to a similar figure. See also dilation. Similar polygons, two polygons are similar if their vertices can be paired so that corresponding angles are congruent and corresponding sides are in proportion. Similar solids, solids that have the same shape but not necessarily the same size. Simplest form of a radical. No perfect square factor other than 1 is under the radical sign. No fraction is under the radical sign, and no fraction has a radical in its denominator. Sine. Sine of angle A equals BC over AB, or sine A equals opposite over hypotenuse. Skew lines, lines that are not coplanar. Slant height of a regular pyramid, see pyramid. Slant height of a right cone, see cone. Slope of a line, the steepness of a non-vertical line defined by m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. x1 is not equal to x2, where p1 times x1 and y1 and p2 x2, y2 are 2 points on the line. Space, the set of all points. Page 772. Sphere, the set of all points in space that are a given distance from a given point. Square, a quadrilateral with 4 right angles and 4 congruent sides. Straight angle, an angle with measure 180. Sum of two vectors. The sum of the vectors AB and CD is the vector A plus B, B plus D. Supplementary angles, two angles whose measures have the sum 180. Symmetry, a figure in the plane has symmetry if there is a symmetry other than the identity that maps the figure onto itself. Tangent, tangent of angle A, BC over AC, or tangent A, opposite over adjacent. Tangent circles, coplanar circles that are tangent to the same line at the same point. Tangent to a circle, a line in the plane of the circle that intersects the circle in exactly one point, called the point of tangency. Tessellation, a pattern in which congruent copies of a figure completely fill the plane without overlapping. Theorem, a statement that can be proved. Total area of a prism, the sum of the areas of all its faces. Transformation, a one-to-one mapping from the whole plane to the whole plane. Translation, a transformation that glides all points of the plane the same distance in the same direction and maps any point, xy, to the point x plus a, y plus b, where a and b are constants, also called a glide. Translational symmetry. A figure has translational symmetry if there is a translation that maps the figure onto itself. Transversal. A line that intersects two or more coplanar lines in different points. Trapezoid. A quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides, called bases. The other sides are legs. Triangle. The figure formed by three segments joining three non-collinear points. Each of the 3 points is a vertex of the triangle, and the segments are the sides. Vector. Any quantity that has both magnitude and direction. Venn diagram. A circle diagram that may be used to represent a conditional. Vertex angle of an isosceles triangle. The angle opposite the base. Vertex of an angle. See angle. Vertex of a pyramid. See pyramid. Vertex of a triangle. See triangle. Vertical angles. Two angles where sides form two pairs of opposite rays. Angles 1 and 2 are vertical angles, as are angles 3 and 4. This concludes Tape 10-01.